Wall Street rallies, the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq post their 9th winning session out of the last 10 as minutes from the US Fed's June meeting suggest that a majority of policymakers believe it will be appropriate to cut rates in September if data trends remain similar. Stocks in the Asia-Pacific trade mixed. The Bank of Korea holds rates at 3.5%, while PMI data for India, Japan and Australia will also be released today. The GIFT Nifty is also suggesting a higher start for the Indian market. Crude prices continue to dip. Brent hits $76 a barrel, even as U.S. crude inventories fall as the government revises key jobs data lower. Gold prices hover near record highs after Fed minutes suggest impending rate cuts in September. Zomato acquires Paytm's ticketing business for a little over 2,000 crore rupees as Zomato looks to add movies, sports, ticketing, live performances, shopping and other services to its portfolio. Going Out will be the third large B2C business emerging out of Zomato. Use enforcement measures as a last resort. That's the finance minister's message to the tax department. Speaking at an event in Delhi, Nirmala Sitharaman also calls for simplification of tax laws, says officials should legitimately collect what is due but ensure that no disproportionate action is taken. Good morning. In the Mumbai News Centre, I'm Sonal Bhutra. You're watching Power Breakfast. Those are the top headlines that we'll discuss in greater detail. But first up, let's take a look at the Asian markets. And it was a rebound on Wall Street. That is something that we are seeing in the Asian markets as well, largely. Though the Taiwanese index continues its down move, that one is down around 32 points. We have the Hang Seng, which is sitting with gains of around 93 points. The Nikkei is higher too, up around 1%. We have the Kospi, which is in the green. But yes, it's a mixed picture right now as far as the Asian markets are concerned. The GIFT Nifty will come up for you on the screen, and that one is indicating that the start for our own markets could be in the green. Now, remember, yesterday global markets were down, but we closed well in the green. But today, the global markets are indicating an uptick. So it could be a possibility that trend could continue for Indian markets as well. So that is what's happening in the Asian markets right now. Let's talk about the US markets because Wall Street ended higher as hopes of a Fed rate cut in September rise. The S&P 500 and Nasdaq added 0.4% and 0.5% respectively, while the Dow Jones average ticked up by 0.1%. The Russell 2000 also outperformed, climbing more than 1%. CNBC's Bertha Coombs gets us a wrap of all the action on Wall Street.
U.S. markets basically flat across the major indexes Wednesday, even as Fed minutes released today provided more clarity on rate cuts ahead, and we got data that may spur the Fed to cut even more. The Dow was up 56 points, the S&P 500 was higher by 24, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq added 102. An interest rate cut is now looking more and more likely after the release of the Fed minutes from its last meeting. In a summary released today, it said that the vast majority of participants at the July policy meeting indicated that if economic data continues to come in as expected, it would likely be appropriate to cut rates in September. Now, markets have already priced in the impending cut next month, which would be the first since the early days of the pandemic. But we got some economic data which now could actually increase the odds of a bigger cut. The U.S. economy created 818,000 fewer jobs than originally reported for the 12-month period ending in March, according to new data released today by the Labor Department. That's the biggest downward revision since 2009. The report could be seen as an indication that the labor market may not be as strong as previously indicated. And the Federal Reserve pays close attention to signs of weakness in the labor market, so it could factor into its decision on just how much to cut interest rates in the months ahead. That's what's happening here in the U.S. Back over to you in Mumbai.
Okay, all right. With the markets now pricing in on the possible rate cut, equity portfolio manager at JP Morgan Asset Management, Jack Caffrey, comments that a 250 basis point cuts might not be favorable to equity markets.
I think they've been signaling that they are making the plans to cut. I think they have been struggling to try to square what has been seemingly still fairly okay economic growth when you look at sort of the GDP now statistics indicating things have been sort of 2.5%, 3%. You know, that's above their trend growth rate. Inflation closer to 3 than to 2, so they haven't quite achieved that. But certainly the tone in the speeches recently have been much more willing to emphasize employment. I think the challenge we then have is a number of members of the bond market keep talking about a 50 basis point cut and the possibility of a second 50 basis point cut. That is certainly not something the equity market, I think, really wants to consider.
Okay, all right. That's the global market action and opinion. But how will these overnight cues impact our own markets? We have our research team joining in to tell you just that. We'll talk about the trade setup, the stocks that are likely to be in the news, and the action from the F&O space as well. Hey guys, a very good morning to all of you. Vivek, let me come across to you first up. Looks like it could be a day in the green again.
Absolutely right. Another day where the overnight cues, the kind of handover received from global markets is quite strong. Like you mentioned, at the start of the show, U.S. markets all ended with the gain. You saw a one-day gap, after the 8-day rally. So in the last 10 sessions, 9 sessions has been positive as far as the own U.S. markets are concerned. Oil prices yesterday, ended with minor gains. What's actually happened is that Brent ended marginally higher at closer to the $76 a barrel mark. Indian markets yesterday, overall it was quite a choppy session, but in the last hour of the trade, you actually saw a very sharp surge, especially driven by the financials. So the entire private financial pack saw a bit of a leg up move in the last hour of the trading session, led by the heavyweights. The Nifty bank saw 300-point recovery from the lows. Advance decline ratio continued to remain very strong, 2 advances for every decline as far as the overall market was concerned. Which were the sectors that did very well? Insurance continued to do very well. OMC is also one pack that actually saw quite a bit of an up move yesterday. What actually transpired in trade yesterday? The large block deals, that is something that will continue to remain in focus today. Yesterday, it's Cyient and PNB Housing. PNB Housing ended over 10% higher after the block deal. Even today, you'll see QIP, you'll see fundraise, you'll see block deals. So Indigrid, Zentech, Kalyan Jewellers, Alchem Labs, all of them will be in focus on the back of various fundraising. Asian markets, GIFT Nifty, like you indicated, indicating an upstart for our own markets.
Okay, all right. A higher start is what is expected for Indian markets. Let's talk about a lot of stocks that will be in focus today. Sudarshan has that list as always. Good morning, Sudarshan.
Morning, Solan. So we'll start with Zomato. Zomato will be acquiring Paytm's entertainment ticketing business for rupees 2,048 crore. In another news, Paytm's board of directors has decided to take a salary cut, and that would be effective April 1, 2024. For GMR Airports, company has received letter of awards to develop, operate, manage and maintain duty-free outlets at Delhi Airport. Kalyan Jewellers promoter T.S. Kalyan Raman will be buying 2.4% stake from Heidel Investments, and that will be done at a price of rupees 535 per share. And with this, promoter stake will increase to 62.95%. PNG Health has reported earnings for Q4 and the year ended June 2024. Q4 profit adjusted for exceptional items was up 23% year-on-year. EBITDA has increased 6% and margin was up 200 bips year-on-year. Also, company has declared final dividend of rupees 60 per share. For India Grid Trust, KKR affiliate Esoteric will be selling up to 17.3% stake via OFS, and this includes base offer of 9.66% and oversubscription of 7.66%, and floor price for the same is at rupees 132 per share. RVNL has signed MOU with Malaysian co. Dhaya Maju Infrastructure, and both these companies will jointly participate in railway infrastructure and services projects and will be setting up manufacturing base in Malaysia for rail coaches and other rail projects. BML has also signed MOU with Malaysia's rolling stock manufacturer SMH Rail, and both these companies will focus on marketing, supply and servicing of rail and metro railing stock products. For Alchem Labs, sources say promoter will be selling 0.7% stake via block deals, and floor price for the same is rupees 5,616 per share, that is 3% discount to CMP. Welspun Enterprises gets letter of awards for project worth rupees 160 crore from Mumbai Municipal Corporation. IREDA will consider raising up to 4,500 crore on August 29, and Paras Defense has got license to set up an industrial undertaking in Navi Mumbai. And last is Zentech. Company has launched QIP, and sources say issue size up to rupees 1,000 crore and indicative prices seen somewhere at rupees 1,600 per share.
Okay, all right. So that's a long list of stocks that will be on our radar today. Thank you so much, Sudarshan, for that list. Finally, let me go across to Manglam. He's joining in with all the cues from the F&O space. Morning, Manglam.
Good morning. It's a very interesting day of trade yesterday and promises to be a very interesting one today as well. Why do I say it interesting yesterday? Because, for most part of yesterday's trading session, the Nifty bank was slightly on the weaker side. We had the Nifty, which was marginally higher, and towards the last hour, as the clock struck 3, as the Nifty bank weekly expiry played out, we saw a big surge on the Nifty bank, and as a result of which, on the Nifty as well. The last tick on the Nifty bank was above that 50,700 mark, keeping keeping it above that 50,000, the 20-day moving average. But on an adjusted basis, it's very close to the 20-day moving average as well. And that's important. What's also important is over the last 3 trading sessions, the advance decline ratio has been firmly in favor of advances. So, those parallel lines come up for you on the screen, and they'd see that they've been parallel with the distance maintained for most part of this week itself. And now the GIFT Nifty is indicating a positive start. So is there a case for a breakout in today's trading session? Because it's also the Nifty weekly expiry today. Cash market flows, one must not read much into the direction of them, largely because the DIS bought 3,100 crores, and this was impacted by a lot of large trades that took place yesterday. We had signed DLM, PNB Housing. So all these large trades impacted the overall institutional flows, but nevertheless, it was a positive for our markets. The FIIs, they unwound some long positions in index futures. Again, not too much in terms of direction, because if you look at their net positionings as well, it's not changed too much from 26,000 to about 18,000 itself, and the net long still at 52%. What are we looking at in terms of Nifty options expiry? Well, the 24,800 call is extremely active for a premium of 45 rupees, as is the 24,700 put. The premium on that is around 30 rupees. So the street is playing for a range of 24,650 at the lower level to 24,850 at the higher level. If one does break out, then maybe all eyes on that 25,000 mark as well. Out of F&O ban, a bunch of stocks. We have Bandhan Bank, Manappuram, RBL Bank and SAIL. All of them will be in focus today.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us and prepping us up for this trading day ahead. Looks like it could be a day in the green for Indian markets. Let's slip into a break. Up next, Zomato announces its acquisition of Paytm's ticketing business. We'll get you more on the story on the other side. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're still tuned into Power Breakfast. Well, let's talk about the big story. Zomato has announced that it will be buying Paytm's ticketing business for a little over 2,000 crore rupees. Mangalam is back with us to tell us more and the analysis as well. Mangalam.
Well, it's a win-win deal if there was any for both Zomato and Paytm. After months of speculation, reportage, and the companies talking about being in talks as well, the deal has been announced. They've gone ahead and acquired Paytm's ticketing business for a total of roughly around 2,050 odd crores. They will buy the subsidiaries of event, sports and movie ticketing business from 197 Communications. Does Zomato have the funds for it? Of course. They have cash of close to 12,500 crores in their books as of the first quarter. So this does not cause a big dent to their cash pile as well. And at the same time, in terms of revenue, this business in FY24 did a revenue of close to around 300 crores with an adjusted EBITDA of 29 crores. Not much for Paytm. The question is, how much does Zomato scale this using its own ecosystem? The last couple of macro calls that Zomato has taken has really paid off well for the company. And this time around as well, Deepinder Goyal in the first quarter had said that they will add movies, sports, ticketing, live performances, shopping via the new app, the third app, which is District by Zomato, which launches soon itself. And they have said that going out will be the third large B2C business emerging out of Zomato after Zomato and Blinkit itself. So, the 300 crore revenue that Paytm has or had reported is not as important as the amount that Zomato can scale it to using its own entire ecosystem. So definitely a win for Zomato, a win for Paytm as well, as it gets 2,050 crores of cash and gets rid of a non-core business.
Okay, all right. So that's about Zomato. That stock will be in focus. Also watch out for Paytm, of course, in the back of this news update. Thank you, Magna, for joining in with that analysis. With that, let's move on. Use enforcement measures as a last resort. That's the Finance Minister's message to the Tax Department. Speaking at an event in Delhi, the FM urged tax officials to ensure that taxpayers and businesses are not subject to unnecessary harassment. She adds that officials should legitimately collect what is due, but ensure that no disproportionate action is taken.
Use enforcement measures as a last resort. It's a very important line. Kindly keep that in mind. Only as a last resort. Enforcement measures. Action taken is proportionate to the issue at hand. That's a guiding principle I would want you to keep in mind. That you don't take action which is disproportionate. And only then fears compounds. People would think, I've only done this one little mistake which I'm willing to correct, but look at the ham-handed way in which I've been dealt with. Avoid that. Also, always follow due process. Even if you're trying to help the situation, don't violate process.
Okay, and my colleague Tim C spoke to Ravi Agrawal, the chairman of CBDT, to understand his take on Finance Minister's call for lighter income tax enforcement measures. Listen into what he had to say.
It's a measure that we take as a last resort when the department is satisfied or has reasons to believe that otherwise the undisclosed income would not be disclosed for tax purposes. But Honorable Finance Minister has flagged this issue, and we would take care that we work around in a manner that we take this as a last resort. We would actually basically we understand the sentiments and the basic philosophy with which the Honorable Finance Minister has mentioned this, and we will work on that. As the communication is concerned, of course, we are moving towards simplification, and we are moving towards taxpayer-friendly sort of environment and making tax compliance easy. So that is the basic mantra with which we are going. We have already taken care and we have taken steps to ensure that the communication becomes more informal in nature rather than formal, as against if you understand and you would appreciate that 5 years before the communication was more formal, but now more and more communication is being made informal, more to sensitize the SSEs, taxpayers, and nudge them towards compliance rather than being sounding very formal in our communication. We have reduced the number of notices that we issue. Earlier, the number of notices that were issued in terms of non-filers or otherwise, those numbers would be large. But now it is more of a question of a nudge.
Okay, all right. Those are some important comments coming in from the Finance Minister and the CBDT chairman as well. We'll slip into a break now. When we come back, we'll talk all about the commodities market, so stay tuned for that. Welcome back. Well, we spoke about equity markets and a lot that is happening. Otherwise, in business, it's time to talk all about commodities. Manisha Gupta is joining us. A lot of updates there. Good morning, Manisha.
Morning, Sonala. Thank you for that. Well, I'll start with the crude oil prices because today is the fourth straight day of decline. And with this, the crude oil prices now are at the lowest since the month of January. Well, there are demand concerns. There is weak economic data that we have been talking about. Also, the latest data from U.S. shows that the non-farm payroll has been revised down by 824,000 jobs between March 2023 and March 2024. And that is the reason you are looking at recession concerns still continuing there. Well, the FOMC minutes also show that the rate cut in month of September is pretty on if data meets expectations, and that we have seen going online. The ceasefire between Israel and Hamas seems to be fizzling out, and the markets will take cognizance of that as well. The only reason that you have seen prices in support is the U.S. crude inventories, because those have declined much more than what the street was anticipating. Well, that's about crude, but yeah, one thing that continues to shine bright is the gold price is still holding above $2,500 an ounce. There is a dovish outlook for the central banks, low bond yields, dollar index at a 7-month close. All of these factors have been quite supportive. Within the base metal space, we've seen some profit-taking seep in yet again. Whether it's copper, Asia slightly on the weaker side today.
Okay, all right. So that's all the update that we have from the commodity space. Thank you so much, Manisha, for joining us with that. Let's now get you the latest updates on our top national story. The Supreme Court is set to resume hearing pleas today over the rape and murder of the 31-year-old trainee doctor from RG Medical College in Kolkata. The Central Bureau of Investigation will also submit its status report on the case before the Chief Justice of India. Meanwhile, doctors' organizations who have been striking till now promise to inform and cooperate with the National Task Force that was set up by the Supreme Court and have also asked for a central law on the issue. Okay, that's all we have on Power Breakfast for today. Bazaar Morning Call comes up next.